Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles, and this is the first in a series of videos that I had intended to show you last week. Unfortunately, the whole internet exploded, and I've been waiting for the smoke and dust to settle. And so, now that things are more or less back to normal around here, I figured it was time to get these games shown. These are a series of games that were played in the Kings of the Sea Grand Finals 2 weekends ago, between Odem Mortis and OMNI. The final was played over a best-of-5 format, so the first team to win 3 battles was going to claim the title. And we're watching this battle from the perspective of Odem Mortis, who had lost the first 2 games to OMNI. And furthermore, OMNI had won those first 2 games without losing a single ship. They had utterly crushed Odem Mortis with 2 flawless victories in a row. In order for Odem Mortis to stand any chance of winning the title, they now had to win the next 3 games back to back, and they had to win them by beating a team that had just spanked them with 2 flawless victories in a row. So as you can probably imagine, the pressure that Odem Mortis were under in this, the third and possibly their final game in the grand finals of the Kings of the Sea, well, that pressure must have been quite spectacular. Now, just to explain what you're seeing here, there are 3 spectators on each team, and they're in a Tier 4 carrier, and what we're seeing right now, this was actually sent in to me by Isolate, who was streaming the finals, along with Flamu, who was on Odem Mortis' side. The 3 spectator ships, which are Tier 4 carriers on each team, have to kill themselves at the start of the game. And they have to make sure that they recover their aircraft so that those aircraft don't stay aloft and spot targets for the team, because that would be bad. So you're going to see a whole bunch of people suiciding at the start of the match. These are just the spectators. Now, Isolate has managed to sink himself, and you're going to see a little bit of a disparity in the scores at the top of the screen at the beginning, because obviously as soon as the ship dies, the enemy team gets some points. Unfortunately, Flamu, who was spectating from OMNI's side of the map, was having a bit of a problem trying to sink himself in his Tier 4 carrier. He just couldn't cause any flooding, so he had to have a couple of attempts at it. But eventually, after launching his aircraft the second time, he did eventually manage to sink himself and get into the spectator mode. And so you will see the score lines settle down. So, we're here on the loop map, and there are 3 capture points. We're watching from the perspective of Odem Mortis, and remember, Odem Mortis are trailing 2 games to none so far in this, the 3rd game of the final. Strangers 123 of OMNI has just been spotted in his Amagi, and he's starting to attract some early fire, but what's causing all the fuss at the moment is the fact that the Cyclone has just been announced. Now, the teams don't like it when there's a Cyclone in play, because it does introduce a certain element of RNG and radically change the way you need to approach the map as far as your tactics are concerned. Now, the Cyclone doesn't hit immediately. They do have 5 minutes to prepare for its arrival. At the moment, however, there's a little bit of a duel happening over by the Charlie capture point. Flambass of OMNI has been spotted in his Benson while attempting to capture Charlie, and he's attracting a whole bunch of fire and torpedoes from Vanderdecken in his Benson, as well as Radical Larry in the North Carolina and Meow in the Kutchezov. OMNI's aircraft carrier has vectored fighters to keep the sky clear above the smoke screen so he can get the hell out of there without being spotted. And Flamu has finally managed to sink himself, so now the scores have stabilised a little, although OMNI are slightly ahead because they did manage to take Alpha just before Odem Mortis took Bravo in the centre of the map. And those torpedoes haven't hit anything, because Flambass knows as well as I do that smoke screens are torpedo magnets, but he did manage to get his own torpedoes away. And there they are, and Vanderdecken narrowly manages to avoid. Yeah, that was really close. And of course, Meow in the Kutchezov and Radical Larry in the North Carolina also realised that smoke screens are torpedo magnets, so they weren't hanging around to catch one in the nose. Vanderdecken there, laying another smoke screen just as the initial smoke screen, which was laid by Meow in his Kutchezov, begins to expire. Now, while Vanderdecken is laying this smoke screen for the cruiser and battleship here, he's no longer in a position to actually spot anything approaching the smoke screen, because he's 1, inside the smoke screen, and 2, he's got an island in the way. And so X-Brow, in Odem Mortis' carrier, has some fighters lurking just outside the smoke screen in order to spot any torpedoes that were headed that way while Vanderdecken was occupied. So you can see the teamwork going on here between the carrier player and the various different destroyers, trying to make sure that there are no gaps in spotting that are going to allow any torpedoes to get through undetected and cause any damage. Now you'll notice that what Odem Mortis seem to be doing here is they're pairing up all of their battleships with a cruiser. In the middle of the map, over at Charlie, we've got Meow and Kutuzov and Radical Larry in North Carolina, for the moment assisted by Van der Decken in a Benson. Over at the other side of the map, by Alpha, we have Grief in an Amagi assisted by Evil Skywalker in a Kutuzov. Floating between Alpha and Bravo, we've got The Legend Begins in a Benson, and covering Bravo in the centre of the map we have Rhaegor in North Carolina and Decliner in a Chapayev. And that's why we have the Chapayev covering the battleship in the centre of the map, because the Chapayev has radar, and if you have your Chapayev located in the middle of the map, that gives you the best possible radar coverage. Now at the moment that Chapayev and North Carolina are enjoying the comfort of their own private little smokescreen, which was provided by The Legend Begins in the Benson over here. But that smokescreen ain't going to last forever, and The Legend Begins is headed over to Alpha to assist Grief and Evil Skywalker in the Amagi and the Kutuzov. They are both spotted, and they're taking some mostly ineffective fire as they race for the cover of an island from intermittently spotted enemies. At the moment, however, with around about 2 minutes before that cyclone closes in, mostly it's just the carriers jockeying for air supremacy and spotting the middle of the map, the destroyers rushing up in order to spot torpedoes fired at the cruisers and the battleships while unleashing their own torpedoes, mostly without actually seeing an enemy ship, just in an effort to try to see who's going to make the first mistake. And Odem Mortis really can't afford to be the ones to make the first mistake because they have just lost their first 2 games. However, with that cyclone closing in, they've still got their team spread out all across the map, covering Alpha, Bravo and Charlie. And that's the thing, when the cyclone closes in, because that view range closes down to 8 kilometers, you want to be in a position where... oh, hang on a second. This does not look too good. That is a very, very nice torpedo spread. I think Radical Larry is probably going to eat a torpedo in his North Carolina. Maybe 2. Nope, just 1, but that hit him on the bows, so that will have caused flooding. So Radical Larry has had to use his damage control. Now, providing Omni can't follow up on that with something else that's going to set a fire or cause another flood, he should be okay. And the cyclone has just hit. And Odem Mortis still have their ships spread all across the map. Here's the thing, once that view range starts closing down, contact made with enemy ships tends to happen at very, very short range, and it doesn't tend to last very long. So the ships that can mass their firepower against enemy targets that suddenly pop up at short range tend to have the advantage, and in order to do that you need to get the team gathered together. And we just had our first casualty of the match. Absolute dominance as Kutuzov got taken out by Rhaegor's North Carolina. So Odem Mortis are ahead for the first time in the grand finals, not just in this match. They also have control of Alpha and Bravo. And with that cyclone closing in, and the points and kill lead in Odem Mortis' favour, now would be a good time to consider pulling back and consolidating and holding on to what they have, and just abandoning Charlie altogether. Oh, hold on a second. Torpedo spread launched in the smokescreen. 1 hit, 2 hit, 3 torpedo hits. Nobody sunk, but somebody is hurting. That was a very important torpedo salvo. I'm not entirely sure who on Odem Mortis fired it, whether it was Van der Decken back there in the Benson or Meow there in the Kutuzov, but either way, that was a very, very important torpedo strike. Now those are actually friendly aircraft that you can see falling out of the sky, and that could be important because it means that X-Brow, you can see he's got 1 surviving fighter in that aircraft squadron, isn't in a position anymore, and Van der Decken is behind the smokescreen, so nobody at the moment is in a position to spot any torpedoes fired into that smokescreen, sheltering Meow's Kutuzov and Radical Larry's North Carolina. Meanwhile, Stranger's 123's Amagi's been spotted again, but he keeps popping in and out of visibility, and Rhaegor and Decliner there in the Chapayev and North Carolina trying to punish him while he was visible, but, well, Strangers is going to get away to fight another day. Over here, however, we've got something fairly important happening. It's RNG Sama in OMNIs Chapayev, and we're going to see one of the plays of the game here. Torpedoes fired around the corner to keep Radical Larry and Meow's heads down. RNG Sama has his radar up, so he's spotting targets for the North Carolina in the smokescreen behind him. But more importantly, there's nowhere for Vanderdecken to run. It doesn't matter if he blows his smokescreen, he knows he's spotted by radar, so all he can do is run, evade, and pray that RNG Sama's aim sucks. But there's very little chance he's going to get out of here alive. I think his engine's just been knocked out. All he can do is keep dodging fire and try to open the distance until RNG Sama's radar expires, because it is not going to last forever. And that's when OMNI's carrier player decides, nope, and vectors aircraft overhead to keep him spotted, even though by now RNG Sama's radar must have expired, and he's got him. And that's going to be huge, because that means Radical Larry and Meow in the North Carolina and the Kutuzov are now blind. And so X-Brow, too late to save Vanderdecken, has managed to send some fighters over to attempt to keep RNG Sama spotted, as he's sheltering quite safe from enemy fire right on the other side of that island. And of course this smokescreen is not going to last forever. And neither are those fighter aircraft, because the Chapayev is of course a cruiser. And cruisers, even the Chapayev, chew up aircraft. The aircraft did, however, momentarily manage to spot Flambass's Benson, and so Radical Larry and Meow take some shots, but he's no longer detected, and I don't think any of those shots hit. RNG Sama, however, is going to be their big problem. He's still lurking around the other side of that island, just waiting for somebody to make a mistake. And let's not forget, further down to the south, there's also a North Carolina, just waiting to shoot up whatever he spots, as is Flambass's Benson. And so Meow and the Kutuzov has fired some torpedoes around the side of the island, just hoping that he was going to catch RNG Sama nosing around. We've got some fire coming from the other side of the map, completely blind of course. They don't know exactly where RNG Sama is, and it's those blind torpedoes which are almost going to cause a problem for Flambass. Any second now, there he is, spotted by aircraft, and narrowly manages to avoid getting himself torpedoed. We're going to come back to RNG Sama, Radical Larry and Meow in a moment, because the drama over here isn't remotely finished, but for now there's something interesting happening on the other side of the map, where XTHD's North Carolina is going to find himself the first victim of a furious gun and torpedo point-blank range battle, as these ships just stumble across each other in the middle of the cyclone. Rhaegor's about to pummel him right in the side there with the armor-piercing volley from his North Carolina. The legend begins, and the Benson has managed to get his torpedoes away, and he is going to get the kill, but he's not going to live to celebrate, because he's coming under a fusillade of fire from Flambass in the Benson and Ginger General in the Kutuzov. Ginger General looking like a very easy kill for Rhaegor here in the North Carolina, as he tries to get the guns reloaded, but they're laying smoke in an effort to delay the inevitable. Meanwhile, RNG Sama with another very important torpedo strike, 3 hits on Radical Larry, and he is in serious pain, as Meow desperately tries to get around the corner of the island and put some shots into this pesky Chapayev. Oh, and Rhaegor has managed to fire blind into that smokescreen over there, and he has killed Ginger General in the Kutuzov. Furthermore, we didn't see it happen because it occurred off camera, but Strangers123 has actually succumbed to fire in his Amagi from Evil Skywalker's Kutuzov. So that means that OMNI, who won the first 2 games without losing a single ship, have now lost 2 battleships and a cruiser for the price of only 1 Benson. They might be about to lose another battleship, however, because Rhaegor does seem to be in a lot of trouble, and it couldn't have come at a worse time, because Odem Mortis are now at 933 points. There are the torpedoes from Flambass in the Benson in the smokescreen. Airdrop torpedoes from the carrier, and let's not forget Geolunuts in the enemy North Carolina right in front of him. Scores are 948 points to 476. Odem Mortis cannot afford to lose a battleship now, unless that battleship also takes down an enemy battleship, and so Rhaegor goes for the ram, but Geolunuts is not stupid. He can see exactly what Rhaegor's trying to do, and he just decapitates him with an armor-piercing salvo straight into his superstructure. But still, Odem Mortis have more than 900 points, and OMNI only have 531, and Odem Mortis have 2 of the caps, so they've got more points coming in. For now, however, it's back to the saga of Radical Larry, RNG Sama, and Meow, and look at this. Radical Larry has been caught completely wrong-footed by RNG Sama's Chapayev. He can't return fire. His turrets are all pointing the wrong way. And now, even if he could get the turrets turned around, only the rear turret would be able to fire, and it's just too little too late. RNG Sama has just taken down Radical Larry's North Carolina. And now you're going to see why it was that Omni won the first 2 games in this series without losing a single ship. Farazelith in Omni Chicago just sacrificed his dive bombers to ensure that Meow stayed spotted so RNG Sama could pull this torpedo strike off as Meow came around the corner trying to catch him. Superb piece of teamwork there from the carrier and the cruiser. RNG Sama just finished off a North Carolina and a Kutuzov within seconds of each other. And this is why you can never write Omni off. Even when they've got their back up against the wall, they keep surprising you. At this point during the match, on the live stream, the audience was going absolutely berserk. Odem Mortis had it all on the line here. They must win this game to stay in the grand finals. They have to win the next 2 games to win the grand finals. And they keep going to up over 900 points. And just when they're about to win, somebody on Omni pulls an ace out of their asshole and sinks a ship or captures one of the cap points and just keeps forcing the score back down and buying Omni some more time to grab the win. Decliner here in Odem Mortis' Chapayev. He does have radar, but it's on cooldown, so he's not in any rush to get any closer to that very, very angry smokescreen up ahead. Friendly fighters from X-Brow in the Shikaku have managed to scatter the torpedo drop, and there it is, it's FTD in the low yang. And here's where it finally all starts going wrong for Omni. Decliner gets his radar up, he's spotted FTD. Grief in Odem Mortis' Amagi takes out Geolunuts in Omni's North Carolina. Once again, Odem Mortis are at 953 points, 986 points. Decliner finally nails XTD, but here comes RNG Sama. And Decliner is not looking like he's in a... Oh, look at the torpedoes! Flambass in the Benson nearly kills Evil Skywalker in the Kutuzov, but Decliner is in serious trouble here. RNG Sama has done it again! He's reset the points back down to 948. And not only that, Flambass is in serious danger of capping Area Bravo. He's there in the smokescreen right in the middle of the map, and any second now... Yep, there it is! Omni have managed to get a couple of kills. They've managed to secure Bravo and Charlie, and for what must be the 3rd or 4th time in this game, they've come within a whisker of losing, and they've just managed to snatch it back and reset the points right at the last second. It's far from over though. I mean, Evil Skywalker could die at any second, so he's well hidden behind that island. He's not risking eating any more of Flambass's torpedoes. And while Odem Mortis do only have the 1 capture point, they do have enough points, 975 at the moment, that 1 capture point is all they need, providing they don't lose any more ships. But Grief has the chance to take out RNG Sama here. And 1 kill will definitely seal the deal. RNG Sama originally firing his armor piercing at the side of Grief's Amagi, now switching to the high explosive because he's angled. And RNG Sama has no choice here. Odem Mortis are at 990 points. Even with 2 bases under their control, they do not have enough points coming in quickly enough to win. He has to sink a ship, and Evil Skywalker is taking no chances, and, well, Grief just has too much health. So despite some heroic gameplay from RNG Sama of Omni, Odem Mortis win their first game in the Grand Finals by scoring 1,000 points ahead of Omni. And so Odem Mortis, by the skin of their teeth, are still in, but they still have to win the next 2 games to walk away with the title. And if you thought there were some thrills and spills in that match, and there were, well, you ain't seen nothing yet. The next 2 games were nothing short of spectacular. And they're the games that I'm going to be featuring in my next 2 World of Warships videos coming soon here on my YouTube channel. I hope you enjoyed this game. You would have to be dead from the neck up if you didn't. And if you want to see more action like this, I cannot encourage you enough to tune in and watch the Kings of the Sea when it goes into the next showdown, coming sometime probably next month. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.